Megumi Fushiguro's soul has finally been thoroughly listened to by Yuji, and as a result, he opted to help Yuji against the King of Curses, Ryo and Sukuna. A couple months ago, I made a video putting Yuji up against Megumi's enemies to see if he could have done better in this position. Well, in today's video, let's do the exact opposite. What's up guys, versus Gambler here, and in today's video, we've got the Megumi version of the Op Gauntlet. I don't know if this video will prove to be as long as the Yuji version, but regardless, I'll put the same amount of love into it. Would Megumi be able to thrive against the enemies Yuji had to face in the past? Well, that's exactly what we're gonna find out. Before we get into this video, my therapist told me I have to come straight with you guys. I'm losing my mind here. Only 21% of you guys who watch my videos are subscribed. Oh my god! If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe. You get more videos and we'll both be happy. Oh yeah, and join the Discord. I'm totally not being held captive right now. Help me! Before we get into the video, let's ask Megumi himself what he thinks about going against Yuji's enemies. Gambler, how are you gonna do that? Glad you asked. Let me introduce you to the app Talkie, the sponsor of today's video. This app has many different AI characters to talk to, and when I say many, I mean many. We have over 100,000 AI characters to talk to, and the most important detail about this app is that it's 100% free. So let's ask Megumi the question now. On this app, you can also create your own AI. The steps are as follows. First, we gotta create the image. I'm gonna reference this real quick. Purple hair, curly, and I'm gonna put a black hoodie. Of course, first we're gonna press the plus, and then we're gonna press boy, and then put our description. What the hell is it? Alright, we're gonna try this again, but I'm going to specify it even more. Alright, I did it wrong again, but I can't be asked to restart. Now we'll put the descriptions, and these are self-explanatory, but my favorite part is adding the voice. I think this one's accurate.
What's up guys? Restless Gambler here.
Then you can go and chat with the character. Easy.
What's up guys? Restless Gambler here.
If you're interested in this app, download it through my link in the description and pin comment. You won't regret it. Anyways, with that aside, let's put Megumi into the Op Gauntlet. Of course, to make this video make sense, the versions of Megumi we'll be using against each of the enemies will be the one that existed around the time that Yuji fought them. So obviously I'm not about to put chapter 1 Megumi against current Sukuna or current Megumi against the Father Cursed Spirits from chapter 1. If Yuji fought someone on chapter 99, the Megumi that existed in chapter 99 will be used. I think that makes sense. Does that make sense? Good. Let's get into the video. The first fight on the list is Yuji versus the cursed spirit that cooked Megumi. Now, with context, Megumi technically sacrificed himself for Yuji and his friend, being caught because he pushed them out the way. But when you reread or rewatch the first episode / chapter, the cursed spirit they went against was just insanely strong. Yuji, who at this point was superior to Maki in physical capabilities even without cursed energy, was overwhelmed by the cursed spirit and was forced to eat a Sukuna finger. In a fair 1v1, I'd say Megumi would struggle, but Megumi isn't primarily a physical fighter. His prowess comes from his different combos with his Shikigami. Against Sukuna, he used Great Serpent to hold him up and used Nue to hit him while restrained. I don't doubt that Megumi would have an actual valid way to fight the cursed spirit. Maybe Max Elephant can land on top of it and Megumi can pile attacks with anything he wants to. The possibilities are literally endless. With that said, I'll give Megumi a W for that, so his score is now 1-0. The next fight is kind of unserious, but it's Yuji's fight with Yaga's stuffed animal when he was being tested to join Jujutsu High. Obviously Megumi wins this one, it's just one stuffed animal, so I'll give him half a win on that. The fight after this is the one where Yuji teams up with Nobara to exorcise the curses inside a shady building. In it, Yuji has like 1.5 fights, one of which is just him going against a very fodder cursed spirit, and we see Megumi one-shot that level back in chapter 1, so that's easy ease for him. But the real cursed spirit to be worried about is the one that held a kid hostage. Yuji saved the kid by punching through the wall and slicing his arm off. With Megumi's superior tracking skills, he'd easily be able to one-shot it immediately with whatever Shikigami suffices. Whether it be the divine dogs or Nue, regardless, Megumi wins. At a 1.5 to the board. The next fight is where everything gets interesting because we got some crazy implications about it. Yuji, Megumi, and Nobara are assigned a mission inside a cursed detention center. Nobara was pulled into another area of the center, and immediately after, a special grade finger bearer appears and blisters both Megumi and Yuji. As soon as Yuji tries to attack, his arm is literally gone, and thus commences Yuji versus the finger bearer. Now, the reason why I said this was interesting was because Sukuna himself said he didn't understand why he ran away from the finger bearer. We find out why that is, and it's because the 10 shadows technique is so practical it should prove effective, but this version of Megumi just really isn't that guy. He has worse physicals than Yuji, he got blitzed by the finger bearer, and the only Shikigami that he has that can get through his durability is the divine dogs. But when we see this finger bearer fight, it's spamming the ball of cursed energy that goes around him, so I don't even think Megumi would be able to do what he did against the second one. If you don't remember, Megumi hid in his shadow to avoid the damage, and he was able to do that because he was distracted and getting pressed by the clones of his Shikigami. I don't see Megumi winning this at all, especially with the finger bearer's superior stats. That's an L for me. The next fight is Yuji vs Sukuna in his domain, and I'm not even going to discuss this fight. While I do think Sukuna would play along to test out Megumi's curse technique, in the grand scheme of things, Sukuna one-shots. Put an L on the board. We finally enter Yuji's mini arc with Hanami, and the first fight he has is with a transfigured human. Megumi one-shots that casually, so I'll give it half a point. But after that, Yuji fights Junpei, who's now a curse user. He's obviously really weak, and Yuji himself was able to get close to him despite the Shikigami blocking him. If you think Megumi, the superior Shikigami user, can't get close to Junpei, you're completely unserious. I honestly don't even think it would come to Megumi getting impaled by the Shikigami's poison, but this will come into play later, so let's talk about it. Now, there are lots of discussions on whether or not Megumi is poison resistant. The reason this is even a debate is because later in the story, Megumi survives eating Sukuna's finger, which is described as a lethal poison. The thing is, we don't even know if this finger could be comparable to this one because the first finger was marinating for years upon years. But beyond that, we have the case of Megumi taking the scorpion hair from Remy. Scorpions usually do have poison in their stingers, so in a sense, Megumi might actually be poison resistant if we give him the benefit of the doubt. With that said, Megumi still cooks Junpei regardless, and the final boss of the arc arrives to interrupt the show. Mahito. This is truly a weird one. Megumi has zero soul awareness up until this point, and so he'd have literally nothing to defeat Mahito with. I actually think it's completely in character for Megumi to just run away because that's what Hanami said to do. If Megumi can stall him until Hanami comes, they would jump Mahito but literally do nothing to him. On the bright side of things, however, since Mahito doesn't experience almost being killed, he wouldn't unlock domain expansion, and so this battle just comes down to who can outlast who. To be very honest, I only think there's like a slight chance the duo could win. Hanami at this point has attacks that only stun Mahito, and the same can be said about Megumi. With Mahito's different tomfoolery tactics, honestly I think they're cooked. Put an L on the board and a W for the Junpei fight. After this, Yuji continues his training until the Goodwill event, and he's assigned to hold off Todo for the other students. This puts Megumi in his spot, so he's going to have to fight Todo without any help.
See these two, man. Come on, man. Why they laughing? Come on, man. Because they.
Yeah, nah, Todo was cooking Megumi without his curse technique. I don't even want to imagine what he would do with it. The only formidable asset Megumi has is his divine dog totality, which could deal damage to Todo, but Todo is avoiding literally every single attack from Megumi without problem. Even if you're faster than Todo, just be in the same tier as him and you cannot touch him if he doesn't allow you to. Let alone Megumi, who's much slower. Put an L on the board, bruh. Time passes and Hanami arrives into Goodwill. Megumi, Inumaki, Maki, and Noritoshi all fight her and fail to do lasting damage. That is, until Yuji and Todo jump into the battle, ready to jump her. In our case, it's Megumi and Todo versus Hanami. Now, just like I said before, Megumi's greatest asset is actually his Divine Dog Totality, which we literally see damage Hanami. However, on the flip side of things, Hanami is actually super tricky to go against. There's kind of a paradox here because Megumi actually lost the first time due to Hanami's cursed energy buds, and because of that, Todo was able to counter it. It's weird, but let's just say Todo knows about it. With that being said, I don't think he'd ever risk Megumi getting up close ever again. And so it'll just be Megumi from afar using his Shikigami and Todo going for black flashes and switching with the Shikigami. This is actually a super lethal combo because of how much Shikigami Megumi can just let out for Todo to confuse Hanami with. Imagine Rapid Escape. Also, up to this point, Megumi actually knows that Hanami's eye branches are his weak spot, and so he can tell Todo to go for it and they'd have an easier time. Of course, as soon as Hanami lets off a domain expansion, they're both dead, but they held their own for the most part. If they hold their own until Gojo arrives, they at least won't get a full L. Let's give them half an L for good measure. The Goodwill arc finishes and we enter the Origin of Obedience arc. Megumi has one fight with the Finger Bearer, but the most interesting fight was against the brother duo Yuji and Nobara versus Eso and Kechizu. Of course, I'm not going to overcomplicate the first part of the fight. We'll say that Megumi and Nobara both get pulled to the exact same place Yuji and Nobara did in the original. Megumi sees Eso's terrible, horrible smelling backside. Megumi sees whatever this is and he launches his maximum technique. Wind King, making the blood that spills out dangerous to come into contact with. In the original fight, Yuji and Nobara are opted to run away, and Yuji with his physicals alone was able to carry and run away with Nobara faster than the blood could get them. I think Megumi can easily replicate the same thing using Rapid Escape to distract him and Nue to fly away. Luckily for the both of them, Megumi has fought a blood manipulation user before and should be smart enough to understand that Max Elephant's water can counteract the blood being thrown. He of course also has, again, Rapid Escape that he can use many times to take the burden of the blood being thrown at them. Now, all Megumi has to do is find a way to defeat them without getting into contact with their blood. Megumi is tactical enough for me to assume he can somehow, at the very least, get a body part from Kechizu. Divine Dog Totality would be more than enough to do so, and we've seen Megumi's ability to use the dog without anyone noticing. If he can get this off and retrieve a body part, this is where Nobara comes into play because her resonance will prove effective against Kechizu, stunning him and allowing for any attacks Megumi wants to use against him. Again, Divine Dog Totality could probably just one-shot Kechizu altogether if we're being honest, but I just wanted to mention that cool little plan. With Kechizu out the way, they have to focus on Eso, and this is where things get complicated. If Eso never gets off the K, he would stay in Wind King, making it harder for the duo to even reach him. They have to find a way to damage Eso, who's flying in the air without getting touched by the blood he's sending. This is where I might lose you guys. Earlier in the series, we see Megumi use Totality to combine Toad and Nue. Now with that being said, would it be too far-fetched to assume that Megumi can do the exact same thing with Max Elephant and Nue? He could have Nue as the base that flies and lets off electricity and Max Elephant that shoots out water. This combination could at the very least get Eso out of the sky. With the water cancelling out the blood and the electricity of Nue stunning him, Eso would be on the ground, where Nobara, Megumi, and most of all, the Divine Dog Totality can get to work. With that, I'm giving Megumi 2 wins for that. He beat both Kechizu and Eso. After Yuji kills his brother in cold blood, we enter the Shibuya arc, and the first fight that Yuji has is against the Grasshopper Curse. Yuji utterly dominated him. Megumi might just be able to do the exact same thing against it. Even though a little later we found out that Megumi has to put in effort to match Yuji's pace, Yuji wasn't even trying against the Grasshopper, so yeah, give Megumi another win. The next fight is crazy and I'm gonna have a ton of fun going over it. Megumi versus Choso in Yuji's place. Now let's get this out of the way. Megumi might just die from the first piercing blood. If he jumps down the stairs completely off guard, Megumi is getting impaled by it. We just now established that Yuji is faster than Megumi casually, and so for him to barely react to the danger, Megumi, who's slower and off guard as well, wouldn't be able to put up his defenses. And even if we grant him them, piercing blood almost went through Yuji's arms and he's regarded for his durability. So that situation is completely unfavorable to Megumi. But we're not putting him into that situation because he's not Yuji Itadori. Megumi would jump down, see Choso and wonder who the hell he is. Choso on the other hand would see Megumi and say, "You're not on my side," and then charge up Piercing Blood. This situation is much more favorable to Megumi because he's on guard now. Megumi has also fought a blood manipulation user before and he knows he can't fuck with something like that or he's cooked. So he summoned either the frog to pull him away if he can't react or the bunnies to distract Choso. In complete character, Megumi would just run away because he has no time to fight him, but we'll keep him here for right now. Megumi also knows, as I said before, that blood is a bad matchup for water, so he summoned Max Elephant to stop all the BS now. In the original story, Choso went into the bathroom where the water was pouring, couldn't use blood manipulation and was confused on why that was the case. So the same applies here. So now Choso can't use any blood manipulation outside of his body and all he can do is blood dough for better hand-to-hand combat. Megumi on the other hand has Divine Dog Totality, something that will probably cook Choso if given a chance. The reason why I say this is because 3 hits from Yuji heavily damaged Choso, and we've seen firsthand that Hanami took more damage from Totality than anything else in the entire Goodwill event, and so Megumi would focus on getting the right opening to attack with his greatest weapon. With Rabbit Escape, I can imagine Megumi making phase to disturb Choso's flow, then having the frogs keep him in place, Nue if need be, and then Divide Dog going to work. If push comes to shove, given that they're inside, he can use his domain expansion, and so he would do what I said, but times 100. Yeah, honestly, I'm giving Megumi the win here. Put that on the board. Yuji goes MIA for a very long time after losing almost fatally to Choso, but he gets back up and fights Mahito after Sukuna destroys Shibuya. After seeing Hanami die before his eyes, the fight starts. Man, I have a very hard time finding out how Megumi wins this without dying. First off, Yuji had to fight alone at first, so there isn't a Nobara Resonance or a Total Boogie Woogie. It's just Megumi who can't damage Mahito versus a Mahito who's even stronger than the one he lost to earlier in the video. Mahito would slice this guy's head off and turn him into a hamburger. If Nobara gets Resonance off against Mahito, it doesn't help Megumi because he can't damage him. Hamburger. Total pulls up, now it's 2 people who can't damage Mahito versus a Black Flash and Mahito. Guys, who do you think would win? Now, just now, I said I have a hard time finding out how Megumi wins without dying, and this wasn't for no reason. Enter Mahoraga. Now, I just wanted to say that this is completely in character. Mahito is a looming threat who would just continuously get stronger if he's kept alive. In the original story, Megumi summons Mahoraga because of the threat of Sukuna and Shibuya, so it's not far-fetched to assume that he would just do the same thing against Mahito, especially as a last resort. Mahoraga would get summoned, Megumi would get smacked away, and Mahito would have to take on the general. But we all know he can't because he's superior to Mahito in literally every single way. One slice from his blade and Mahito explodes. Regardless, that's a Megumi L, so put that on the board. After Yuji defeats Mahito, Kenjaku pulls up and then comes Urame. I think this is also a moment where Megumi would use Mahoraga as Gojo was literally within their grasp. Now y'all can go debate Mahoraga versus Kenjaku in the comments, but regardless of who wins, Megumi loses. I'll put half an L for this fight. After the Shibuya arc, Yuji enters like 1.5 fights. He exercises some cursed spears with Choso, which we can give Megumi a half a win for, but suddenly, Naoya appears on top of the bridge, staring at the guy who took his spot as the head of the Zenin clan. In the original story, Yuji got instantly blitzed by a Naoya that wasn't even trying. This Yuji is faster and stronger than the one that Megumi had to put effort to match. With Naoya's malice towards Megumi as well, Choso being there wouldn't even help, he just started blitzing and comboing him. Until Yuta pulls up. We'll say Megumi is set for execution just like Yuji in this situation, so now it's Choso who's supposed to protect Megumi from Naoya and Yuta. Yeah, this isn't gonna go well at all. Yuta was having a competitive fight in true base, meaning without Rika, against a Yuji who's just outright stronger than Megumi. However, on the flip side of things, Megumi does have a ton of things to get crafty against Yuta. Obviously, I'm not about to concoct some insane plan for him. Rika would hold blow in place and Yuta would just kill him. putting it all on the board for the guy. After Yuji dies and gets revived by Yuta, he and Megumi are assigned to go retrieve Hakari to repress the Culling Games. In the original, Yuji goes the straight approach, entering the Fight Club directly and getting Hakari's attention. Will plays Megumi in Yuji's place, and so he's the one who enters the room with Hakari. First off, before even getting into this, Megumi would definitely do a way better job than Yuji in this situation. Megumi wouldn't just act like he doesn't know who Gojo is like a dumbass. Yes, I'm talking about you, Yuji. Anyways, I do still think Megumi would get into a fight with Hakari because of the fact that he's just not willing to cooperate with them. So let's say Hakari starts off the same against Yuji and now they enter battle. Hakari massively closed the distance against Yuji using the train doors, and the same will happen to Megumi, and the attacks he's throwing will do more damage to Megumi. Again, Yuji's entire thing is being durable, and Hakari was cooking him when they were actually fighting. Megumi would be done worse. Yuji's attacks itself also did literally nothing to Hakari, so it all comes down to Megumi's strongest Shikigami, Divine Dog. That Shikigami will damage Hakari, and to a great degree as it damaged Hanami, so you have to figure out a way to actually hit him. Do I need to remind y'all that the Divine Dog got blitzed by Reggie Star? Register. That guy. Now, to give him the benefit of the doubt, however, they are inside a room, so Hakari has less room to dodge and things like that, but if push comes to shove, jackpot is coming out. Just put the L on the board. Yuji gets Hakari on board with the Culling Games and they all enter, with everyone being scattered all of a sudden. However, both Megumi and Yuji have the same mission in mind, to find Higuruma. Yuji is lucky enough to have found a middle school friend, and Megumi gets duped by some random girl. Yuji goes on to face Higuruma, and so we'll just put Megumi in his place. This was another matchup that I found was pretty interesting, so let's get into it. First things first, Higuruma immediately pops his domain. He doesn't even try and fight without it. Now, Megumi is in a position where he can't really use any of his Shikigami properly. If he tries to summon anything, it will just get transported back to him instantly. Now, to refresh some of you guys' memories, Higuruma's domain has two levels to it. One is when you get judged for a petty crime, like Yuji being at the pachinko parlor as a minor. He got confiscation but nothing else. The second level is if you do something so bad you get the death penalty. When that happens, you get confiscation but also the risk of dying as soon as Higuruma touches you. Now let's get into our bag. During Shibuya, Megumi summoned a beast that's existence led to all the people that died. The nuance of this is the fact that Megumi knows how evil Sukuna is and summoned the beast to deal with him. Now, what are we thinking? Is the indirect cause of all the people dying worthy enough of the death penalty? Y'all can argue in the comments about that, but I don't think he would get it. To make this more fun, however, I'm going to do two different scenarios, one where he gets the death penalty and one where he doesn't. The one where he doesn't is the one that matters though, so just keep that in mind. If Megumi gets the death penalty, it's him with just his... Wait. Megumi carries a curse 2 with him at all times, and at this point of the series, he had this weapon on him. Megumi would get his weapon taken away, but his curse technique would still be intact. This means it's Higuruma with a one-shot technique versus Megumi with his entire arsenal again. This is weird because I feel like if even one Shikigami touches the sword, they're getting sent to the gulag like the white dog. So Megumi has to watch out for that. The best thing he could do is try and restrain him, which shouldn't be too hard considering Higuruma was getting worked by a base Yuji with 0 curse energy. If push comes to shove, Megumi can use his domain expansion and have multiple Shikigami hold him in place and not allow the sword to go anywhere else. Then he could just finish him off with Divine Dog. This is a Higuruma with a one-shot technique, and the version where he doesn't have it is what we're focusing on, so yeah, put a W on the board for my guy. Yuji goes MIA for the rest of the Culling Games arc, finally being back with Megumi before they get Sumiki. But it wasn't Sumiki, it was Yorozu, an ancient sorcerer, and so Megumi's soul gets crushed. As a result, Sukuna finally uses his binding vow with Yuji to take over his body, then transfer himself into Megumi, and thus starts Yuji's rage. Now, we're putting Megumi up against Sukuna in Megumi's body, so it's Megumi versus a Megumi who's superior in literally every single way. Sukuna gets away with Megumi's body and a month passes before we see Yuji fight at all, and alas, He pulls up on true form Sukuna with a vengeance. Can Megumi do literally anything to Sukuna? Well, yes and no. The Megumi who existed at this moment would have the same ability to attack the soul as Yuji, but it wouldn't be as potent as Yuji's because he's obviously way weaker than him at this point. He'd probably just get one shot, so yeah, that's another L. At the end of the video, Megumi acquired a grand total of 10 wins and 11 losses. Fights that Yuji may have lost, like against Choso, Megumi would win given the right circumstances. Likewise, a fight that Yuji might have won, like against Mahito, stacked up to a lack of ability to get the job done. Overall, I'm content with this video and I want to hear you guys' thoughts, so let me know down in the comments. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, go ahead and subscribe. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.